Hotep, and welcome once again to another edition of Community Cop. My name is Noel Leder, one of the co-founder members of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. I'm here with my two co-hosts today. First of all, Michael Graves, a.k.a. Big Mike.
Namaste.
Second of all, Father Lucas.
Help, tap.
And unfortunately, Julian Harper won't be with us today as he's on Community Cop assignment. But we like to thank our viewing audience for watching once again. This is where truth and real talk occurs. And we like to also remind those of you who want to watch or share the program with loved ones who don't have access to cable that they can watch it over the internet. All they have to do is punch up Community Cop or punch up our name on Facebook and hit the Community Cop dial, and they can watch the program live and share with a friend or a foe. But we like to welcome you, and our first subject of conversation is Barack Obama. Of course, the United Nations is in session, and Barack Obama spoke today very strongly as it relates to Iran and their desire to have, according to United States intelligence, nuclear capabilities. He spoke very strongly to that. Michael Graves, we'll start with you. What were some of your thoughts on Barack Obama's comments?
Well, I think that it's a hardline position, and this is definitely an act of aggression to take that hardline position without consulting and talking with the leaders of Iran. Certainly, when you say that this is against U.S. foreign policy, and then you tie it to Israel and say that the thought of Iran having nuclear weapons is a threat to the state of Israel. Well, Israel has at least 200 known warheads, so who's that a danger to? So I think that it's just white supremacy at its finest, dictating to another country what it cannot have, and that's inappropriate.
I think he was doing the weasel thing, though. He spoke very strongly. By the way, U.S. intelligence has been consistently saying that Iran is not close to developing a nuclear weapon. So this is the same kind of thing that took place in Iraq when the investigators said that there was no weapons of mass destruction, and they just ignored it and went ahead. Actually, U.S. intelligence as well as British intelligence are saying just the opposite of what Netanyahu is saying. Now, poor Barack is in between a rock and a hard place because Netanyahu is putting him there because knowing that Barack has to kowtow to the Jewish money, not the Jewish vote, but the Jewish money in this country, and he doesn't want to get that screwed up. But what he was saying is not that definite. He was saying what he's been saying before, that diplomacy is the right way to go, but he's not going to be engaged in diplomacy forever. So that's, one of those statements which those who think that he's being diplomatic will applaud, and those who realize that when he makes a statement about Israel, that he's on the other side of the fence.
Right, but how do we synchronize, United States having such a strong policy against Iran as it relates to their potential for having nuclear arms, and perhaps a pending war, which is going to cost a lot of lives, both American and Iranian.
And Israel.
And Israel.
And
in Israel.
Really.
And how can we synchronize United States' strong position against Iran, possibly having nuclear arms, and there's no conversation as it relates to Israel not reporting before the United Nations, which is international law, which is an international mandate. That discussion is not even had. Not only in the United States, but in United Nations.
Well, that's the hypocrisy that you're pointing out. He speaks in terms of a nuclear-free region, and at the same time ignore the fact that Israel has nuclear weapons. Now, if you want to be fair, it's either nobody or everybody. But you can't sit here in this country and decide who can have nuclear weapons and who cannot because we are the white nation. It's crazy.
Well, I think that certainly when Iraq tried several years ago to develop nuclear capability. The Israeli military bombed that nuclear site, gave no consideration as to what the nuclear spillout could have been and who could have been harmed in that process, just outright took it upon themselves to bomb that site with the backing of America, of course. So certainly NATO forces has shown itself that it will move against any non-white country that goes against whatever the foreign policy might be. So I think in that context, how does Israel and America dictate to its neighbors, Israel in particular, dictates to its neighbors who can and cannot have nuclear capability?
You see, we have to be very careful, though, in the use of terms. Nuclear capability is one thing, but we're talking about nuclear weapons. And when they talked about Iraq having nuclear capability, they made it very clear that Iraq did not have any nuclear weapons and were not developing nuclear weapons. That's the big thing, not nuclear capability, because you could use nuclear capability for all kind of energy production.
Well, suffice it to say that Ahmadinejad has gone on record as saying that they are not using the nuclear positioning that they're in right now as they are upgrading. They are not attempting to make it into nuclear weapons. It is strictly for purposes of energy. He's going on record and made that crystal clear. It is Israel and America that's saying that it's for weaponry. They have gone on record as saying that it's strictly for energy purposes.
Exactly, and all the investigators have backed them up on that there is no nuclear weapon capability right now.
Well,
near it.
Our desire is that war will not result, even though it seems like the war clouds are grouping. Staying in that particular region real quick, there's a side story. A number of Islamic clerics are calling for the destruction of the pyramids in Egypt. And this is not the first time extremist Islamists has called for the destruction of the pyramids, which they claim are symbols of paganism. Father Lucas, on a side note, do you have an opinion as it relates to even the potential? Now, I know the Africans are the ones who built the pyramids, and that might be one of the reasons why there's such a disregard for their significance, historical significance. Do you have any point of view as it relates to the potential of this happening? This is, like I said, this has been a movement a lot of people don't know for a long period of time, but as late as August and September, after this so-called Islamic stream, whatever they call it, there's been a resurrection in the calls for the destruction of the pyramids.
That's been going on for some time. I really don't believe it's going to happen, but I don't have any crystal ball any more than anybody else. I think that's an extreme position which is being taken, but, and said because of its connection to paganism. Well, I was wondering, where were these guys when we were destroying Iraq, that ancient city, with all of the important artifacts and everything else in regard to even Islam, the rise of Islam. So it's, again, it's either through ignorance or a double standard.
Well, certainly it can be very well documented when Arabs came into African countries. And in Egypt in particular, it dates back to 641 AD when they actually came into ancient Kemet. They have no right to the land in ancient Kemet. They have no right to its historical history. When they decide and when they dominate the visitation with respect to the Sphinx, with respect to the pyramids at Gaza, they have no right to that. For them to even question whether it's pagan or not shows you just how ignorant they are. For they are truly invaders in that context. When they look at these sites might be of a religious nature. However, the fact that you're in this country and you control the country, nobody has asked you to bow down to the Sphinx. No one has asked you to bow down to the Great Pyramid of Khufu. No one has asked you to do any of those things, to lay yourself prostrate at the three pyramids of Giza. You have chosen upon yourself to disrespect and go in the pyramids to flush out ancient artifacts in them, sell them, abuse them, give them to your to England and other places like that. You disrespect the pyramids every day, and yet no one has asked you to bow down. So whether you call them pagan or not, those religious beliefs were in existence when you was running around from one water hole to the next water hole, and you're in your nomadic existence because you've settled and taken over with the sword these sacred lands. Now you put yourself in a position to decide what's acceptable, what's unacceptable, what's of pagan origin and what's not. You call it pagan because it's older than you. Those pyramids are at least 4,500 years old when you was walking around running from one place to another looking for water in the sun, and you was killing your firstborn if it wasn't a male child like a savage. So you have the nerve to put yourself in a position to decide what's acceptable and not. You should maintain your proper position and act like a guest, though you've made yourself an invader.
And historically speaking, I mean, if you look at the millions and millions of volumes of books. See, I was lied to by my European teachers when I was in school, who told me that Africans, and they was general, only had an oratory history, that they never wrote anything down, that they passed their traditions down orally. And when I read and I studied, that there was volumes of University of Timbuktu, the so-called University of Alexandria, where there was millions and millions of volumes of books written by Africans, and we will never know the wealth of knowledge that was contained in those books. Because when Muslims and when Christians came into northern Africa, they destroyed and they burned everything that they came in touch with. So they have a history and a tradition for destroying African history.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Noel, because the fact is when Napoleon came upon the library of Luxor, him and his generals destroyed 600,000 volumes of books, himself alone. And then the Arabs followed suit. So it's not just Europeans we need to think about in the destruction of African civilization. The same way the Europeans did it, the Arabs came in and destroyed all of these books because they couldn't read or write. So they looked at these manuscripts as something pagan on paper, because they didn't understand that you make notes and you record your own history, and they destroyed all those books just like the Europeans.
All right, so my hope is and desire is that they will not. These Africans, these Arabs who exist in Northern Africa are invaders, and their destruction of the history and culture. And the pyramids are not only monuments that has religious context. Those are universities of information, not only on a religious context, but of a historical, of a scientific, astronomical, astrology, et cetera, et cetera. So the destruction of these pyramids would be devastating. But as I said, these individuals, these infiltrators, these murderers have no respect for knowledge.
In addition to what they contain, the very pyramids themselves are examples of the extraordinary skill of these people before the barbarians came in.
Exactly. Quick comment. Romney, Republican candidate Romney, when he was caught making a gaffe as it relates to 40%, 7% of Americans who he say are totally dependent on government and are totally void of any desire to do anything better, made a comment also in that same speech where he said that the Hispanic vote will destroy America. Michael, what did he mean by that? The Hispanic vote will destroy America.
Well, what he was talking about contextually in that secluded meeting of the elites, these were the high-pitched guys who were giving big bundles to the Republican Party, the Tea Party types. He had said that he had to stop, they had to do something to stop the Latino population that's continuing to build in this country, and said that if left unabated, their vote would destroy America, because he's saying that historically they're going to vote Democratic. So the Republican Party, who he looks at as true Americans, who he looks at as those that uphold American values, would lose out in that process.
You know, it's very interesting, these folks who talk about other folks living off the government. It is the government that provided the loopholes in the tax laws that enable people like Romney to get rich. It is the government that enters into these treaties like NAFTA and so forth and so on, which allows the U.S. corporations to offshore working jobs from this country to places like China and other places around the world. So nobody depends on government more than the banks, the corporations, and millionaires and so forth. And when he made the statement about 47% do not pay taxes, that is extreme point of his ignorance, because what he was saying is they don't pay income tax, but income tax represents only about 40% of the national gross product. There's such things as every time you go into the store, you're paying tax on whatever you buy. There's such things as excise taxes. Every time you get a paycheck, they take out for Social Security, for Medicare, and so forth and so on. So, you know, that was one, well, stupid statements from Romney are expected anyway, so there's no point beating it.
And also in that meeting among the elites, Romney also pointed out that if he won, that automatically the economy would improve. Now, what does he mean by that? Well, first of all, the bigwigs, Republicans, have pulled out $2 trillion that they're not even investing in America at this time. That's just on hold, waiting to see who wins. So he knows that $2 to $3 trillion will come back into the economy. He also knows that those who think right now it's a gamble, the stock markets will allay all of their fears, and there'll be an ease if he were to come into existence, because he's a white guy. And they're just saying that some people can't just accept the fact that a black man is in charge of America, and that the markets right now are a little shaky from Romney's vantage point, and that it will be more secure with just his image in the front of the ticket.
Father, before you make a comment, can you answer this question as well? Romney released his taxes for the last 2 years. And as it relates to some of the comments that Michael just made, as the exporting or holding back of funds, to me, the conversation as it relates to Romney would simply be to remind him that he has some of his money in foreign bank accounts. I mean, for someone desirous to be president of the United States, to take his money and put it in offshore bank accounts so that he won't have to pay taxes in this country is part of the problem of the American economy, because as Michael said, so much money individuals have removed out of the flow of the American economy.
You're absolutely correct. And what he's forgetting, of course, is the economy, he said, will improve. It's improving drastically, but for people like Romney, for the corporations and the banks. The economy is improving for me. It's only the poor slobs who is going down the other direction. They're going up right now.
Right. So if I debated Romney, I would just talk about those tax dollars, that he has in offshore accounts, and how can someone desirous to be the president of the United States of America put his money in banks outside of American borders.
And he's closing down one of his operations and blatantly opening up in China.
Wow. All right, maintaining the subject of the electoral votes, it's been announced recently that a lot of clergy, black clergy, has problems with President Obama's position on gay marriage. His approval of gay marriage has brought the wrath of some prominent black clergy who are now calling for their parishioners not to vote in this particular election. Father, we'll start with you. Is that surprising?
It's not surprising because it's not that many, thank God. But when you say prominent, a prominent butt kisser, it's being led by A.R. Bernard, who, I mean, every time Ray Kelly or Bloomberg win, you got to be careful that Bernard's nose don't, So this kind of stupidity is the one issue. It reminds me of the NRA sending out messages that not to vote for any politician who does not support or who is in favor of gun control. Well, of course, if that's the only issue that you're going to take in mind, it's like the crazy bishop, the Catholic bishop in Newark, who is reminding, quote, Catholics that they cannot or should not vote for any politician who is in favor of abortion and gay marriage, as if those are the only issues. People are being killed by the United States drones all over the world. Most folks have spent more time outside the womb than inside the womb, and they're totally the mass incarceration of black folks or people of color, the people losing their homes out in the streets, more homeless now than ever before, the deportation of people who's been here for years. President Obama has deported more than even idiot George Bush. And the only issue that they could think that is the one issue to make a decision on is that it's stupidity.
Well, certainly President Obama has made a pragmatic choice to roll with same-sex marriage, and the very nature of the black church obviously is conservative, and so many churches in the South, the Deep South, the Bible Belt, have had a real serious problem because of their conservative nature with respect to President Obama, who does not come out of the civil rights movement, taking his position on gay marriage, same-sex marriage. And the pragmatic president obviously knows that for the most part, our people have nowhere to go. It's either him or Romney. It's not going to be any third-party candidate. If you choose not to vote, it is indirectly a vote for Romney. If you choose to vote, you have to vote for one of those two. So he's been very pragmatic, and he feels there's no way to go on that. He took a calculated risk that he would get more votes from the gay community because he did, when running, make certain promises to them. So he's answered on Don't Ask, Don't Tell. He's answered on same-sex marriage. He's delivered, to the Latino community, to white unemployed workers. He's done so much for so many folks, and while it hasn't translated into anything for the black community, he understands that we have nowhere to go.
I think a lot of folks may underestimate a lot of folks in the South because, while that's true about, I don't use those terms, conservative or whatever, but I think that what's going to happen is the folks who are hungry, the folks who are losing their homes, the folks, those folks are not going to be, when they go in that ballot box, I don't think they're going to be concerned about gay marriage. I think they're going to be concerned about a roof over their heads and food in their stomach.
And Mike, do you think it's appropriate to take a position just on that sole issue? Michael and Father, just on that one issue.
No, I think as I said, I think it's stupid.
When you consider right now, black farmers are being devastated by the politics of the South, how white farmers are being compensated and black farmers are literally on their own. While yes, last year some awards gains were made by black farmers, but the majority of that was in loans, as opposed to the real giveaways that the set-asides that white farmers get. So I would say in that sense, they really can't look at just same sex. If you're getting ready to lose your mortgage and you're going to be homeless, if you're on unemployment, if you're receiving unemployment benefits, and the Republicans have tried to take those away the last couple of years, and certainly President Obama's tried to extend it another 99 weeks, things like that, certainly you can't look at it just one way. So there's so many economic reasons, there are political things, wars in the air, certainly more wars current, but it's also in the air for other places. So you really can't look at it. You can't afford to just look at the same-sex thing and use that as the tipping point, as opposed to all the other things that affect our everyday lives.
All right, and I'm pretty sure that someone as wise and calculating as the minister that you talked about it knows that. So, but bringing it local, New York City Board of Education has decided in the last couple of years to thrust itself into the area of sex education in a very intimate way as it relates to our children. Recently, the New York Board of Education has stated they're going to give teenagers the day after pill who are sexually active and who come to them stating that they had unprotected sex. The Board of Education is now allowed to give these young people, without the authority of their parents, the day after pill. Now, Dennis Walcott stated recently that only 2% of the parents answered no because they had the opportunity, alleged, to opt out of this particular program. I'm not certain how vigorous the New York City Board of Education reached parents and let them know that they can opt out and that this was about to happen. But according to Dennis Walcott, he said only 2% of the parents answered no in terms of opting out, but he didn't say what percentage of parents responded. Out of the 100% of parents that send their kids to the to New York City public schools, how many percentage of those parents did actually say yes? So Michael, we'll start with you. I mean, this is unbelievable in my sight. What are your impressions on this particular actions by the Board of Education?
Well, this is obviously taking the control from the parents, but I think your prior point is a salient one, in that what is the percentage? If they're going to throw numbers at you and say only 2% opted out, 2% of what? Is it 2% of 10%? Is it 2% of 50%? Because if you look at all parents and guardians, it's no way in the world, given the conservative nature of a whole lot of parents and the thinking that something sinister might go on behind their back, there's no way in the world that 98% of the parents blindly said, we're on board with your ideas, especially when it covers 14 years old and up. So if 14-year-old little girls can have sex and then come to them to so-called rectify the situation with the day after pill and things like that, and that's going to go on without parental notice. Once you're in the program, they don't have to notify you for anything. There's no way in the world that Black and Latino parents in particular are on board with that. It's no way in the world.
Poor Dennis, he's a worker for Bloomberg, and they pull numbers, Bloomberg, Kelly, Brown, Commissioner Brown, and just pull numbers out of the air. Whatever sounds good, we pull it out and lay it out, and if the people are ignorant enough or don't know enough to buy it. I checked with about 5 principals after Walcott came out with that, and they said they never heard of it. They never heard of an ability to hop out of this at all. They were simply given the mandate, this is what's going to happen. And a couple of them said at their home school or PTA, whichever term you want to use, the vast majority of the parents were against it. Because how you're going to have a 14-year-old and you decide that you're going to help this child to engage in activities that the parents don't want. It's mind-blowing.
Well, I think that's a key point that Father Lucas brought out when he mentioned Dennis Walcott works for Mayor Bloomberg. These are things that Mayor Bloomberg himself could not impose on the Black and Latino community, because that's the target, because they're not going to do these things to white folks. These are things that Mayor Giuliani could not do. They needed the perfect Black person, the Black face in front of the program to get these things over. So Dennis Walcott, Chancellor Walcott, is the perfect person. He has a ease when he speaks. He speaks very well, by the way. He speaks very easily. He's not demonstrative in his tone. It's very laid back and it's very engaging. So he's the spokesperson for this program, but this program in its depth, in its nature, is, to use Noel's word, is diabolic.
All right, the final, one of the final comments, we had a couple more to speak about, but before we go to the phones, a Manhattan federal judge recently allowed a woman named Pamela Geller to advertise what some consider anti-Islamic advertisement in the subways. One particular ad that they're going to put down is, any war between the civilized and the savage, support the civilized man, support Israel, defeat jihad. First Amendment rights, of course, is the law of the lands in America. Father Lucas, would you have any problem with this particular ad. Once again, it says, any war between the civilized and the savage, support the civilized man. Support Israel, defeat jihad.
Yeah, just as his identification or whoever is responsible, I know whoever is responsible for it, just was confused about who the civilized and who the savage is. Otherwise, I would have no problem with that, except that the real savage is the Israeli government and what's it's doing. So that to put up, but a number of folks are putting up now signs in contrary to that anyway. But it's rather shows you to the extent. And it went further to say, if you do not support Israel, you are part of the savage. Well, I'm proud to be a savage.
Well, I'm very concerned when I see foreign policy being discussed on the subway tracks. That's just a little bit out of order, because if there's a problem with Arab countries in the state of Israel, I don't understand how that war is also being waged right here in New York. To consider one savage and to consider the other one civilized, that's a whole nother debate as to who. I mean, I could sit on one side and debate one, and then take a half-hour break and then debate the other side on the other, because you see some barbarism on both sides, especially from the state of Israel that promotes itself to be a democracy, and yet you treat Palestinians like dogs. As a matter of fact, if you treated a dog like they treat Palestinians, you would be locked up in New York. So that's as far as the foreign policy. Plus, the other part to it is, how is American foreign policy so intertwined with Israeli policy? I don't understand. Can you be an American and yet not support the state of Israel and yet consider yourself patriotic? Is a whole nother question. So I'm just saying, can you be an American? Can you be proud? Can you serve America and yet, on whatever level, reject Israel, and yet it will not ill affect your future of being able to get a job, navigate a nice career, and whatever, and so on and so on. So what I'm saying is that that's a whole nother context, that somehow to be an American and to be a patriot and to stand for the red, white, and blue, you also have to stand for the state of Israel. And I didn't get that memo in my house growing up.
You know, it's very interesting when we talk about barbarism on both sides. I can't look at it as equal, because one is in the context of occupation. And you can't leave that context out of any discussion between Israel and the Palestinians. The occupier, I have no use for occupiers, whether the United States occupying Iraq, Pakistan, practically half of Yemen, or whether it is, so that what the occupied do, while much of it you can't go along with, or I can't go along with, I still have to put it in the context that if you're occupying somebody, they have a right to whatever means necessary to throw your ass, or to throw you off their butts.
And as when Michael stated that he didn't get the memo, what a lot of people don't know, that every member of Congress is given an invitation, quote unquote, to visit Israel, and is paid for by a lobbyist group. And that when they do this visit, they're given a contract asking or requested to sign, stating that they have unrelenting support for Israel, that they support United States financing Israel whenever Israel has a need for financial support. And these are Congress people, are really those who don't sign. And Cynthia McKinney, who was a congresswoman from Chicago, I believe,
Georgia.
From Georgia, she was given an invitation to go, and she was given a contract, and she said she's not signing the contract, and she exposed what every member of Congress experienced, especially the black members.
Well, you're right. As a matter of fact, it goes further than just signing the contract. They are members of Congress that also purport themselves or comport themselves to be members of the Israeli Knesset. So I don't know how you can be members of both. Like I said, I haven't got that memo. That's not what my father taught me, that to be an American means you got to support the state of Israel.
Right.
Well, you see, it's all boiled down to money. I couldn't help contrasting. You remember when Hugo Chavez came to the country and referred to George Bush as the devil? Charlie Rangel, our fearless leader, jumped up and accused her. How dare you come to my country and insult my president? Netanyahu goes to the House, insults President Obama from A to Z, and he's applauded by congressmen, and fearless leader Rangel never says a word.
Right. All right. With time for our segment of phone calls. Thank you for holding on. First caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yes, sir.
Where you calling from?
Good morning. Can I make a quick comment?
Where you calling from? Don't listen to your TV.
Calling from the International Village of Harlem, brother.
Quick comment or question, brother.
Absolutely. Quickly, what you mentioned before about Arabs disrespecting ancient sacred cultures of ancient Kemet, that is true, and many of them, and I think that's a problem because they've been infected with white supremacy like a lot of other groups, but also they don't even understand things like Timbuktu, even when Timbuktu has ancient Islamic, and I suspect that they suspect that it has African origins, and that seems to be beyond their comprehension as well. Also, is anyone surprised that the Sergeant Benevolent Association has endorsed Romney, even though when you endorse that, you are basically saying that you are buying into the hatred and contempt that many of his class and conservatives and Republicans has for people who work in unions and their ideals and working class struggle, etc. Thank you.
Excellent point. Excellent point. No, we're not surprised, especially from any union from the New York City Police Department. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Kareem, calling from Harlem, brother.
Okay.
Hotep,
brother.
I just want to say, brother, in the Daily News and every other newspaper, they're trying to demonize Ahmadinejad, right? And call him all kinds of demagogues. But Israel is the real demagogue. America is the real demagogue. They kill people everywhere, shoot drones, kill civilians, kill babies, and then they got the right to call people demagogues. These Jews are nothing but Nazi, racist devils, and Romney is trying to play off this so he can look good with foreign policy. But Obama, I don't understand why he keeps supporting them, but he won't support his own people.
Right. All right.
I still think you brothers is right on point. Y'all right on point. Y'all need 2 hours, brother.
Hotep, brother. There's always been an accusation that he called for the destruction of Israel. Now, one thing I know about the white media is that when someone makes such a call that they would play it repeatedly. I haven't personally seen it. I'm not saying he didn't do it, but I know when they normally say that he called for the destruction of Israel, which I heard in the other days is saying that he respects all people, be they Jew or Muslim, et cetera, et cetera. But have any of you ever heard him personally call for the destruction of Israel?
No, and I've never seen them put quotation marks around it either.
Right.
So they're getting by with a big scam.
Well, I've never heard him call for the destruction of Israel. I think that he has gone on record supporting the Palestinians, and he has gone on record questioning the validity of the so-called Holocaust. Because the greatest Holocaust, see, I'm not in favor of using that one word because that's a very powerful word when you say Holocaust. The greatest Holocaust in the Western Hemisphere or in any hemisphere or in any time period in documented history is the Holocaust of enslavement. You know, for us to go through 4 centuries of being brutalized, butchered, raped, and just exploited systematically by every government literally in Europe, and by, of course, the U.S. government. So for that, the greatest crime against humanity to go on. So what he has done, and he's raised questions about the validity with respect to was 6 million Jews killed during the European Holocaust.
Right. I'm glad you used that term, the European Holocaust. That's the only term I use in regard to that. And you're right and in fact, the African Holocaust is still going on in terms of enslavement, except we give it another name. But the prison system is basically a continuation of slavery.
All right, and to reiterate, one thing I know about the white press is that if he had made this call, I believe I would have seen at least 50 times. And they attempt to demonize him. They always say he did this, but I'm always looking for the quote. I'm always looking for his comment. But next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yes, hello. This is Brother Omar calling from the village of Harlem. Thanks for accepting my call. First of all, I want to wish the late John Coltrane a happy 86th anniversary. He left us at the tender age of 39 in 1967. His birthday would have been on the 23rd of this month, which would have been on a Sunday. I don't know if you mentioned him. A Love Supreme, which is one of the most dynamic musicians, in my humble opinion, of the 20th century. That being said, I watched President Obama, and I taped that speech that he gave at the United Nations. The bottom line is, I think that, in my humble opinion, when he mentioned Nelson Mandela, he got a loud applause from everyone that was there, including our Arab brothers and Muslim brothers. But my question to you is this: with the problems that we're having in the Muslim world, in that diaspora, how is that going to affect his election coming up in November? Romney has a war chest almost double what Obama has been able to collect. So he has the money, and he has a lot of people who are voting for him under the cover. But how do you feel, did this speech that he gave at the United Nations today, do you think that that's going to help or hinder him as far as the election coming up a few months from now?
Okay.
I'll hang up and listen to your response. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you for your call. Father first?
Well, I just think the speech is totally irrelevant to the election coming up in November. You know, a lot of people now are catching on. President Obama is extremely skilled in use of words, but the action speaks much louder than words. But I don't think this speech is going to affect the election in any way, shape, in any way.
Well, certainly, I think that the speech gives a lot of mileage to his campaign. He has to continue to appear diplomatic. He has to continue to appear presidential. But above all, both of those things, he has continued to be heavy-handed and talk heavy-handed and not be reluctant to act very heavy-handed at the slightest position of any problem with American foreign policy. If it is abridged in any way, he has to let it be known that he has no problem in using American warfare, as well as calling on NATO to come in and take care of whatever the problem, give you the business.
Okay, all right. This is our Nobel Peace Prize winning president, the same prize that Martin Luther King received. But next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from Manhattan. My name is Citizen J, activist and Cynthia McKinney voter.
Right.
I called to comment on Israel and give some information.
Real quick, brother, we got a lot of phone
I was
calls.
wondering if the audience was aware that Israel held Cynthia McKinney hostage on the flotilla.
Yeah. Correct.
To give aid to the Palestinians.
Right.
And Cynthia McKinney was a presidential candidate in the United States.
Right.
Also, on BAI this week, I heard that they go into people's homes and kidnap their children and put them in jail and torture them, as well as stone them. I've seen that on Democracy Now! This week. They go into the neighborhoods and stone people's houses, and people run into their houses in fear. Also, I recommend checking out the flag. That's a pentagram on their flag. Go to the internet, get a picture of their flag, and compare it to a picture of their pentagram.
Okay, all right, brother. We have to cut you off. No. We have to cut you off right there, brother. Thanks for all that information. We got a lot of phone calls on the line. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
East Harlem.
Okay, quick question or comment?
Yes, good afternoon, my brothers.
Good afternoon, brother.
Two quick points. I think it's much to do about nothing. The reason why I say that is because Romney said 47%, which is almost 50%. So white folk are not stupid. Mm-hmm. They're the main ones among that. And whatnot. So they're not stupid, despite they done heard all the things that Romney said concerning the middle class and the poor. So I think it's going to be a landslide, personally. My second point is, I know he won't do it, President Obama, because he's a gentleman. But every time they get up there to debate, he should remind Romney of what his mother said.
his family was a welfare family. His mother said that they were on welfare. So what is he talking about? He done been on the system all his damn life.
Right.
He
Okay.
got rich off
All right.
it.
Excellent.
Now he's talking against that same system that provided for his family.
Okay, thank you.
My
Excellent
brother.
points. Thank you for your call, caller. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yes, I'm calling from Harlem.
Quick question or comment?
Yeah, I just want to put this out to the black folks in the world and whatnot. We need to organize, and never mind the white media. I mean, we have the ability to emote, carry out information, and things like that. And I say that to say that, I live in Wrangell houses, and I'm perplexed at the fact that if it hadn't been for another show a couple of hours before yours, I would have never knew that the minister Farrakhan was right across the street.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I'm like,
Okay.
how did I miss this? I
Right.
walk my dog every day. I ain't see no flyer. I ain't hear nothing. And
Right.
this
Okay.
brother is right across the street speaking.
Okay, thank you for your point. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Organize.
All right, organize. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hello?
Where you calling from, caller?
I'm calling from Hell's Kitchen.
Quick question or comment?
I have a question. What does the panel feel that Obama has done for the African American community?
All right, excellent question. Mike first.
I think that with respect to image, he's been outstanding. He has a great image as a father. He has a great image as a husband. He has a great image with respect to the diplomacy, the way he carries himself. I think he did something for the black farmers. It's not too much I can say other than it's a great image with respect to young people. But substantively, domestic policy that could really help our people. That what he did in terms of the historical black colleges, the money that he gave more than that to white colleges. So in essence, not very much for our community, truth be told.
I think that's the bottom line. I'm not that familiar with the president and his family to know what his real family life is all about, how good he is as a father and so forth. So I can't comment on that. I do know, however, that image is not going to end the incarceration of black folks. I don't think image is going to make an opportunity for a serious education of black folks. I don't think image is going to stop the homelessness among black folks. I don't think image is going to have anything to do with the income of black folks, which is far below that of white folks. So this argument about image really doesn't mean anything to me because, image don't cut it.
Well, that was my position.
Right.
That wasn't her question.
Right.
So you were really talking about what I said with respect to image.
Right.
And image is very important. We have a lot of young people looking at this president. We've always been taught from birth that you can be anything you want to be, and yet there's always been a ceiling. The image of Obama breaks the ceiling so that there'll be those that will strive to get into Columbia, Harvard, to be doctors and lawyers, and to move on. So the image to me is important.
I think I did answer her question.
Right.
I did answer her
Okay.
question that he's done practically nothing.
Right.
And as far as I'm concerned, again, I repeat it, that image may be important to some folks, but I think action is much more important to me than image.
All right. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Brother Ray, Brooklyn. I want to thank you for mentioning the Arab slave trade. Please read Chancellor Williams' The Destruction of Black Civilization. Do research on John Henry Clark and Dr. Ben.
Right.
And that land, that's our land.
Right.
It is our land.
Okay. Excellent point, brother.
African people's land.
Thank you. Excellent point, brother. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
I'm calling from Manhattan.
A quick question or comment. We'll wind it down.
My comment is about Israel and the way they've been treating the Palestinians. Israel claims to be a democratic country, but yet they are occupying the West Bank. They're constantly bombing the Gaza Strip, and I think it's hypocritical for any democratic person in this country to back Israel when they're doing the thing that we claim that we abhor. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. All right. Excellent point. Excellent point, caller. Thank you for your comment.
And the whole thing is not just Gaza and the West Bank. think about how democratic they are to the Palestinians who are still now living within what is called Israel.
Right. All right. Next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
The Bronx.
Oh, the Bronx. Quick question or comment?
The comment is, I would like to know why this Congress never helped work with the president. I am a voter, and I'm very pissed off that this white Congress, 76 of them, treated my president the way they did. Very mad.
Right. All right.
Well, that 76
He
is
is
interesting.
the only president that helped Medicare. When I got sick and got out the hospital, those Medicare insurance people had nurses come to my house to monitor me. That was never done before. So I know what my president is doing for people.
Right. All right.
Well, certainly there have been a lot of our people, blacks and Latinos in particular, that have benefited from the Affordable Care Act. Certainly, no doubt about it. But to answer your question, I would say that the 76 people you're talking about came into Congress as freshmen congressmen in 2010. Those are all Tea Party, for the most part, candidates. So the Tea Party, who was taking over the Republican Party, has moved in such a way that they have gone against everything. They just say no to everything that the president ushers forth, and that they have been hostile to him, and unilaterally Republicans will not support anything he's doing, whether it's good or bad.
Next
I
caller.
just
Next
want to
caller.
point out, however, that Medicare did not begin with President Obama.
All right. Next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Next caller. You on the air? Are you there? Okay, we lost that call. I'm sorry, Father. What was your point?
That Medicare did not begin with President Obama.
Right.
So when she said it never happened before, she must not have been around in 1933.
Well, it didn't start in 1933 with FDR. It started under the Johnson administration. So if we're going to quote facts, let's get the facts right.
Well, that fact is right, that everybody else knows that
Medicare did
is
not
social,
start
so
in the
yes, it did.
1930s. It started in the Johnson administration. Medicare and Medicaid, not under FDR.
Yes, it
I
did.
let you get away with it before, but not this time.
No, well, you're the one who gets away with a whole lot of stuff, but Medicare did start under
Well, we have a
Roosevelt.
difference. We did have a difference of opinion. The caller.
Somebody
asked earlier-
Google it real quick and get back to us. It started in the Johnson administration.
Someone that asked a caller asked a couple of minutes ago about our impression of what Barack Obama has done to African American community. I didn't comment, and he did very little to nothing. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? In my opinion, where you calling from, caller?
I'm calling from Harlem, New York.
Quick question or comment?
I wanted to raise the issue quickly regarding the day after pill. And wanted to ask if maybe you will hold a forum on that issue, because that's a very important issue for our community to have a discussion about. And I think it would be very good to have men in the room who are concerned about this speak maybe to younger brothers about this as well. It's not just a woman's problem
Right.
or situation.
Are you a
So
parent?
maybe it's something you could consider holding a forum on.
Okay, excellent point. Do you have a student in a public school?
No, I don't, but I used to teach in the public schools, and this is a very serious issue.
Right, because I want to know what was your opinion as it relates to, do you mind?
Well, on one hand, I think that this is necessary, but I also believe our community has not had the level of discussion that they should have regarding this.
Right. And I see a note up on the screen, FDR with the war on poverty.
It started in 1965. That's the year, and FDR obviously was long dead by then, so it's not even worthy of debate.
Well, all right. Well, all right. Close the comment, Mike.
United African Movement is back in session. They're going to be at Sankofa Academy tomorrow night, 7:30 Wednesday. Sankofa Academy, all roads lead to Sankofa Academy. I'll be speaking there, and also you'll get the great historian, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, will be speaking tomorrow. And we didn't mention it in the beginning, but obviously this is the birthday of David Walker. And so we should always remember David Walker and David Walker's Appeal, one of the greatest things ever written. Those who know the word of prayer, let's pray for a swift and full recovery for Alambe Brath, one of the great lions in our community, and also reinstate Alton Maddox.
I'm just thinking that LBJ started Social Security too. Be that as it may, workman compensation. But be that as it may, we got a job on our hands to do.
Right. All right. On behalf of Community COP, I'd like to thank our producers and engineers, Nat Woods and Veronica Kent. We also have Lulu and Sierra in the back working the program. And those who want to contact 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care, our number is 718-455-9059. That's 718-455-9059. And if you want to communicate with Community COP, we have a page on Facebook. You can write a comment if there's issues that you want us to discuss. Please give us a comment on our Facebook page. And did you want to give the telephone number, the address to the meeting?
The meeting tomorrow is on Schenectady and Fulton Street. I think it's 1670 Fulton Street, but it's Schenectady and Fulton Street, Wednesday night, 7:30, United African Movement. Dr. Jeffries will keynote. I'll also be speaking there. It's going to be a great night for Alton Matters.
And the General is in the house with company. Thank you for watching. See you next Tuesday, 5 o'clock, Community COP, where truth and real talk occurs. Peace. And Mr. Harper, we love you. Get better. And Little Mo. Woo, almost forgot. Little Mo. Love you, Little Mo.
And Mr. Leader, love you, man. We gotta get together real soon, Mr. Leader.
Yes, sir.
Music and dance before the fiddlers have fled.